Welcome to Books Recapped. Drew Karpyshyn, Path of Destruction. Star Wars, Darth Bane Trilogy, Legends. First part, Chapter 1 to 14. Dessel was lost in the misery of his job, barely aware of his surroundings as he used a hydraulic jack to pound through the rock and extract cortosis. The dust and noise were overwhelming, and the jack was heavy and wore down quickly. Dessel's arms and lungs ached, and even his teeth hurt from the vibration. He was determined to keep working because the miners were paid based on how much cortosis they brought back, and he didn't want to share the profits. Unfortunately, the motor on his jack blew out, causing the hydraulics to cease. Dessel cursed the company that owned the mines, the Outer Rim Works Company, ORO, for its cheap equipment and lack of maintenance. Gerd, one of the other miners, tried to claim the vein, but Dessel didn't want to give it up. He suspected that Gerd was trying to start a fight with him. He had known Gerd for a long time and knew that he had a reputation for starting fights with other miners. Dessel was ready to defend his claim. The two men argued and eventually came to blows. Dessel came out on top in the fight, but the incident was reported to the ORO management. As a result, Dessel's pay was cut, and the other miners started to avoid him. Des was feeling exhausted and wanted to return to his bunk in the barracks and sleep. The foreman told Des that he needed to make an example of him this time, and he couldn't work the mines until Gerd was healed and back on the job. Des knew that this meant he wouldn't earn any credits until Gerd returned, and he would still be charged room and board because of his father's debt and how he was trapped in a brutal job with no hope of escaping. The transport was taking him back to the colony in a hypnotic, numb state, and he reflected on how the company trapped its workers into a lifetime of hard labor in the cortosis mines. Des went to the cantina run by Karpyshyn, where he was served a free drink by the owner. Des looked around the cantina and noticed a group of Republic visitors dressed in crisp Navy uniforms, standing out from the miners. Des joined a sabacc table and bought in with his ORO account card. The ensign at the table noticed his size and made a joke about him being a Wookiee. Des played conservatively and folded often. The limits on the table were low. After half an hour, Des was about even for the night, and the game continued. They discussed their thoughts on Jedi and Sith. The soldiers expressed their belief in the Jedi as defenders of the Republic and the importance of wiping out the Sith, who were considered illegal. Des, however, was more skeptical and questioned the need for such extreme actions. He also made a sarcastic comment about how the Sith were just trying to kill them in a war, and the soldier took offense, leading to tension at the table. Des's goal was to earn enough credits to pay off the ORO Corporation and leave the planet behind forever. As the game progressed, Des's stack of chips grew steadily larger and the sabacc pot continued to grow. However, other players began to drop out, leaving only Des and a Republic ensign remaining. Eventually, Des's strategy paid off and he won the sabacc pot, which was worth 10,000 credits. However, the Republic ensign accused Des of cheating and caused a commotion, throwing drinks and attacking the droid dealer. The canteen owner, Karpyshyn, intervened with a blaster and ordered everyone to leave, but allowed Des to stay. Des left the cantina with his winnings, feeling a sense of victory and relief. The streets of Apatros were dark, with high power rates causing residents to turn off lights at night. Des was walking through the streets when he sensed danger and was ready to defend himself against the three attackers. The attackers, who had followed him from a cantina, were two soldiers and the ensign. Des used his strength, size, and years of bare-knuckle brawling to overcome their military hand-to-hand combat training. During the fight, Des saw a vibroblade being drawn, but it was unclear if it was actually glowing or if it was a hallucination caused by the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He was able to grab the wrist of the wielder and twist it back, driving the blade into the attacker's chest and killing him. As the fight ended, The other two attackers fled and Des was left alone with the body of the ensign. He planned to grab the blade and use it as a light to guide him through the darkness. However, the blade was no longer glowing, and Des was left questioning if it was ever truly glowing or if it was just a hallucination. With the help of the owner of the cantina, Des escaped the planet. Sometime later, Des and his fellow Sith troopers were waiting in a jungle camp on Phasera. He used this time to run a quick system check on his TC-22 blaster rifle and his backup power pack. He also checked his vibroblade in his boot. As he waited, he observed his troops, who were also checking their equipment. Des reflected on his time in the military and the camaraderie he had found among his troops and felt that he truly belonged with them. He also reminisced about his past and how he joined the Sith Army as a way to escape prison and Apatros. During the battle on Skor, where Des and his unit, the Gloom Walkers, were ambushed by Trandoshans during the night, the attack resulted in a massacre of many of the Sith troops and Des losing many friends. Des reflected on his unease before the battle and how he should have paid more attention to it. He also resolved to not let the Gloom Walkers get caught in a similar situation again. Later, Des and his unit received their orders for their next mission, but Des still had an uneasy feeling that he couldn't quite explain. He and his companion, Adana, discussed whether to tell their superior, Lieutenant Ulabor, about his unease and the possibility of pulling back or pushing forward. Later, the Gloom Walkers had successfully surrounded an outpost in the jungle with the goal of surprise attacking the Republic soldiers stationed there. However, as they prepared to move in, Des, the sergeant in charge, noticed that the clearing was brightly lit and that each of the 3 repulsor craft on the landing pad had a soldier operating the turrets. This would make it extremely difficult for his squad to charge without getting caught in a storm of blaster fire. He realized that the only way to succeed was to take out the gunners in the repulsor craft. Des assigned Lucia, a junior trooper who was skilled with a TC-17 long-range blaster rifle, to take out the gunners and signal the rest of the unit to charge. She successfully took out the gunners, allowing the Gloom Walkers to move in and surprise the Republic soldiers, ultimately achieving their mission objective. The Gloom Walkers had successfully infiltrated the Republic outpost and took it over, thanks to Des's leadership and quick thinking. However, upon returning to their base camp, Des was ambushed by the enforcers and was arrested for disobeying orders and going against his commanding officer. Despite his success in the mission, Des was taken to the main Sith camp for a court-martial and faced the possibility of a death sentence. Des reflected on his actions and the mysterious power that had taken over him during the battle and wondered about the consequences of his actions. Des never got a clear look at the man who ordered his transfer from the pit he was held in. By the time he was freed and given food and water, the cloaked figure had vanished. He was placed under heavy guard as he boarded a transport ship heading for Korriban. No one spoke to him on the trip, and he had no idea what was happening. They arrived at an ancient temple overlooking a desolate valley in the middle of the day. Des felt a shiver go down his spine as his foot touched Korriban's surface, as he knew it was once a place of great power, but now only the merest shadows remained. He was met on the landing pad by a hooded figure who led him down a flight of stone steps and into the temple. Des descended the stairs and reached a long hallway that led to a single room. The room was dark and filled with shadow, and a dim figure inside beckoned him to come forward. The figure turned out to be a Twi'lek, who revealed himself to be thick and heavy-set and stood nearly 2 meters tall. Capez, the Twi'lek, asked Des about his knowledge of the Force and the Jedi and the Brotherhood of Darkness. Des admitted that he didn't know much about the Force and that the Jedi were supposed to be guardians of the Republic, and many believe they have mystical powers. Des also stated that the Brotherhood of Darkness are the leaders of the army and sworn enemies of the Jedi. Capez told Des that the Force was real, and those who wield it have power he cannot imagine, and that true victory in the war will not come through armies, but through the Brotherhood of Darkness, and their greatest weapon was the Force. He also revealed that Des has many remarkable talents that are manifestations of the Force, and that he has only scratched the surface of his gift. He also felt the power of the dark side in the room, and he could sense it in Des as well. He offered to train Des in the ways of the dark side and to become one of the Brotherhood of Darkness. Des was left speechless and thought about abandoning his unit without a chance to say goodbye. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Sith launched a surprise attack on the planet Ruzin, catching the Republic fleet unprepared. The Sith used a variety of ships, including dreadnought cruisers, corsair battleships, interceptors, and buzzard fighters, led by the flagship of the Brotherhood of Darkness, the Sith destroyer Nightfall. Lord Khan, aboard the Nightfall, used the Force to direct the assault through the technique of battle meditation. This technique threw the enemy ranks into chaos, feeding their fear and hopelessness, and crushing their hearts and spirits with bleak despair. The Republic battleships were unable to provide aid, and the outcome of the battle appeared to be in favor of the Sith. The battle meditation technique used by Lord Khan was a weapon passed down from ancient Sith sorcerers. It allowed Lord Khan to maintain his mental focus, drawing on the dark side of the Force to influence the outcome of the conflict despite his physical exhaustion. Back on Karpyshyn, Des, who had adopted the name Bane, trained to increase his power. He had become physically stronger and more skilled in the use of the Force. He was also becoming more aware of his surroundings and could sense the presence and intentions of others. He was also able to levitate larger objects, and his power was increasing with each lesson. He was also aware of the jealousy of some of his fellow students, but he was protected by the attention of Cordus and the other Sith Lords. In a lightsaber duel between Bane and Faharg, an opponent who had previously defeated him, Bane gained the upper hand. This time, Bane was more skilled and used the Force to anticipate and react to Faharg's moves. He was able to transition smoothly from one sequence to another, making it more difficult for Faharg to use the Force to anticipate his actions. Despite Faharg's superior defensive skills, Bane was able to knock him to the ground and to defeat him. Bane was summoned by Lord Cordus. Bane had lost control of his emotions in the fight against Faharg, and that led him to kill his opponent. As he walked to his meeting with Cordus, he struggled with feelings of triumph and remorse. When he arrived, Cordus listened to his explanation and justification for the killing. He acknowledged that Bane's actions were a natural extension of the dark side philosophy and that Faharg's death was his own failure. However, he also warned Bane about the relationship between passion and the dark side was dangerous. Bane left the meeting absolved of his crime, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt. That night, as he lay in bed, he reflected on the events of the previous day and realized that the relationship between passion and the dark side was more complex than he had thought. He understood that emotion brought power, but that power also increased the intensity of those emotions, creating a cycle that could only be broken by destroying the target of the hatred or reaching the limits of one's ability to command the Force. Bane was training to become a skilled lightsaber combatant. He had just defeated another warrior and had been training with a blade master for the past 3 weeks. However, despite his extra attention and training, Bane's skills were not progressing. In fact, he had taken several steps back and was struggling to understand the intricacies of the new sequence he was being taught. His blade master, Kasim, told him that the sequences were just tools and that he needed to tap into the dark side of the Force to become a true warrior. Feeling defeated and frustrated, Bane hobbled back to his room, where he lay down gingerly on his bed. On a different planet, Lord Khan and another Sith Lord were discussing the defeat of the Jedi Order. They had received news that the base on Ruzin and the orbiting fleet had been wiped out by the Jedi. Lord Khan explained that the Jedi were not capable of defeating their vast armies and that the Republic was doomed. He believed that the only way to achieve true victory was to annihilate the Jedi Order. Back on the Karpyshyn Academy, Bane struggled to access the power he used to defeat his enemy Faharg. His weakness had become public and he was unable to call upon that power anymore. He knew that his reputation had protected him from challenges from other students, but now that it was gone, he knew he had to take the initiative and attack. He decided to challenge Sirac, a fellow student known for his unbeatable skills in the dueling ring, in the hope of redeeming himself. Bane stood in the ring, watching Sirac approach with his twin-bladed training saber. He felt his body release adrenaline into his system, but he did not feel any change in his emotional state. Sirac whispered to Bane that he wishes he had challenged him earlier when many thought he was his equal. Meanwhile, the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness, Khan, presented a plan to exploit the Jedi's compassion as a weakness. The Jedi had spread themselves too thin trying to protect the innocent citizens of Ruzan, who had become refugees of an epic battle between the champions of light and dark. Khan's plan was to concentrate their full numbers on a single point, to breach the Jedi's lines. His generals and strategists agreed with the plan, but one of the generals, Karpyshyn, pointed out its flaws as the Jedi's numbers were still stronger, and they were hiding their numbers. In the Sith Academy, there was a celebration following the victory of the Brotherhood of Darkness over the Jedi on Ruzan. However, Bane was not affected by the exultant mood, as he had just spent 3 weeks recovering from a brutal beating from Sirac. He was now an outcast, shunned by the other students and disregarded by the masters. Even Sirac, who had defeated him, had moved on. One day, a new student named Githany, who had played a significant role in the victory on Ruzan, approached Bane and offered to train him in the ways of the Force. She explained that she needed someone strong in the Force to help her defeat Sirac, who had powerful allies. Bane, who had lost his training from the Masters and his reputation in the Academy, accepted her offer. Githany warned him that the Masters wouldn't approve, but she didn't care as long as they both survived. As they began their training, Bane noticed that Githany's knowledge of the Force was extensive, having been trained as a Jedi Padawan for many years. However, something about her offer still bothered him, and he asked her why she left the Jedi. Githany didn't answer, but her touch on his cheek revealed that she had feelings for him. Bane knew he had to be careful, as Githany's ambition and cunning could be dangerous, but he was willing to take the risk if it meant regaining the Force and defeating Sirac. Thank you for watching our video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing to our channel. Pressing a like and commenting would help us greatly. You can also support us on Patreon, link in the description. See you soon on Books Recapped.